Hi everybody, today's video will be a third part of comparison. It will be about a similarity between ancient India cultures and ancient Central American cultures and a little Peru. It seems that there is a great distance between them and that such a connection could not exist in such an early period of time, and in general there are no findings or historical information about such a connection, neither from tradition nor from the local residents, who lived in those areas for many generations. And still, if you look at the comparisons from the previous videos, all this leads to possibility to find a same picture here. So let's continue. Where to start? Let's start with the fact that during my research in the various places I found different parameters for comparison between the American continent before the arrival of Spaniards or Vikings and ancient India. In the official academic approach, in the field of history and archaeology, they don't accept the possibility of such a connection. And as in the previous time, the same question arises. Why? Okay, so in this video, I made a comparison with different parameters. We will see the comparison between Mesoamerica, a little South America, and ancient India. Participants from one side Mexico and the little Peru, and from the other side ancient India. Okay, the first parameter is the transition to agriculture, and according to the researchers that were done, it was suggested that maize was domesticated in Mexico about 8,000 years ago. In other words, in Central America, there was a transition to agriculture, more or less at the same time as in Turkey, Jordan, Syria, and India. And we will see. Also, tomatoes were first domesticated in Mexico. Potatoes were first domesticated or cultivated around it's about 7,000 years ago in Peru and Bolivia. Okay, now if we are going to India, agriculture began to develop in India about 10,000 years ago. Archaeologically, wheat and barley were domesticated or grown in Mehargrar about 9,000 years ago. There are researchers who suggested that the knowledge of growing wheat and barley migrated from the Fertile Crescent region towards India from west to east. In simple words, agriculture didn't develop in India independently, but however, there are researchers who think the opposite. And why? Let's see. Let's see this research. You can see this map. It is a research of barley, genetic analysis on the spread of barley. And what is interesting here is the blue line. You can see that if we take the approach or suggestion of the spread from the Fertile Crescent to India, then we have to accept that people from Alicos or Zagros Mountains in the south migrated to Mehargar and Phirana and Tamil Nadu and also to Bihar. And you can see the blue line. It's coming from left to right and spread to 3 directions. But if you see the number below, the distance between Alikos and Mehargar is 3,000 kilometers. So the question arises, in such an early period, instead of sitting in their place and try to develop agriculture, they start migrating for such long distance to some unknown place, yes, and for an unknown reason, and spread the knowledge of agriculture. But there could be another possibility that both in India and both in South Mesopotamia, let's say, or West South Iran and South Iraq, people made the settlement independently and start develop agriculture independently. Now we're going to the second parameter. The second parameter is the transition, or more precisely, the discovery of copper and bronze. It should be mentioned here, as in previous videos, that there is a problem with getting a smelted copper suddenly. If we take a natural copper deposit, which is 99% copper, and throw it into a fire, in open air, we will not be able to get molten copper, because the melting temperature of copper is 1085 degrees and the fire reaches maximum of 850 or 900 degrees. But if we take copper ore in the form of compound with other materials, then in the smelting process the copper is separated from other materials, and it is really a temperature of 850 degrees is enough. But there is a problem. In an open air, nothing will happen. You must make as a minimum small kind of pit, cover it, and leave a small hole to let air coming in. All this is to regulate the amount of carbon and oxygen that are needed. I mean, those ancient people first had to make an oven or some pit, or use some existed pit, and only then discover the copper. In simple words, it is not simple process if you are looking for an incidental story of discovering a copper. And despite everything I have said so far, copper began to be produced in ancient India, in Iraq, Syria, and even in Turkey in a very ancient period, about 9,500 years ago. But independently, copper or bronze began to be produced also in ancient Mexico. Here in the picture, you can see copper items that have undergone a melting process. Here in the picture, you can already see bronze. Here another image of copper tools. Those are examples from Peru. You can recognize the snakes, the mask, and some kind of tool, maybe medicine tool. Okay, but if we move to ancient India, then we will find the same picture too. This is a picture of a dancing girl, bronze from Mohenjo-daro. Here you can see deers are pulling a cart. This is a Harappa culture, bronze. Arrowhead, Harappa culture also. Plates for food preparation made from bronze, also 4,000 years ago, at least. Here you can see a working tools. And here you can see working and maybe medicine tools. Here you see finds from about 8,000 years ago from Dholvira in the middle with a letter D and in the right side with the letter E. These are findings from bronze and copper or copper. And here the question arises, why copper? In terms of strength, copper is a 3 on the Mohs scale, like limestone, but rocks like granite, andesite, and basalt are 6 up to 6.5. So it doesn't help to replace the flint tool. But if we remember, the copper is antibacterial, which means that pots or plates and cookware that were made of copper were to kill all the bacteria. But much greater importance was regarding medical tools, where there is, of course, no need to explain why. For example, healing wounds, even today. Finally, we see that both in ancient Mexico and in ancient India, melted copper tools began to be produced independently. Okay, now we are going to third parameter, many gods. Both in ancient America and in ancient India, there were many gods, or approach of many gods, and some of them are also very similar. Here is, for example, a comparison table. You can see on the right side gods that were in Mexico, and on the left side a similar gods from India. You can recognize, for example, a moon god in Mexico and Soma, moon god in India, or Varuna, sea god from India, and Chalchu Tiku, sea god from Mexico. Okay, now we are going to parameter number 4, symmetry in construction. You can recognize here the entrance gate with similarity between the left and the right side. The windows and the decorations are identical. Here is another example when you can see a square gate, a stairs and square gate in the middle, and the same structures from the left and the right side. This is also a symmetry. This is another example of symmetry. Two pillars that make an entrance, one in the middle and two in both sides, from the left and from the right. This is a pyramid of El Castillo. And if we are moving to India, we can find the same approach, the same ideas. We can see here two pillars that make the entrance to this cave. One in the middle and both from the left and the right side, as it was in Mexico. Here is an entrance gate. You can see from the left and the right side the structure and decorations are identical also. It means symmetry. and also symmetry of entrance gate. This cave is Kondane Caves near Mumbai. And here you can see the entrance to the square door. Both from the left and right side there are windows that are symmetrical. Also the pillars, 3 pillars from the left and 3 pillars from the right. And this is the entrance gate to this cave. Then Betse Caves, and you can see here too the decorations from the left and right side are the same. Now we are going to some little 5 parameter. It is both cut in the rock stairs and also some round cut. I called it well, maybe. And you can see this is from Mexico, and this is despite the fact that they knew how to build stairs and build wells. And now if we are moving to India, we can see here a cut in the rock stairs, and this is also despite the fact that in India they knew very well how to build stairs. And here you can find some rounded structure cut in the rock and called a well. Okay. Now we are moving to a 6 parameter. I called it animals on wheels. Here you can see a picture from Museum of Anthropology in Mexico, and those animals related to the Olmec culture, and they date something like 3,000 years ago, very early period. This is another picture of a find in Mexico, and here from a museum in Berlin. Okay, these animals on wheels received the interpretation name toys on wheels. But why? The question arises, yes? Very simply, because they are similar to our toys today. But could there be another possibility, for example, yes? Okay, if we talk about toys, then toys are a model of something more real in everyday life. For example, a toy of a car is a model of a car that drives on real road. But the Olmecs had no cars and even no carts or wagons. So where did toys suddenly come from? Where they appear suddenly from? Some people who think that those were really toys saying something like this. They say the Olmecs came to ability to be able to use the wheel, but because they didn't have suitable animals to pull carts, they didn't develop the concept of animal carts. Another problem, they said, is the lack of roads suitable for the use of carts. Okay, so what do I think? Those arguments are actually, if you look at the whole picture, from our time today. But how could simple Indian at that time know what the conditions needed to be for the idea of the wagon or carts to be succeed? How? Before he even tried. They didn't have to test animals. They could try pulling carts with human power. Also, for example, this too would have improved the local ability to move large weights, for example. And the argument about the roads. What do I think about this argument? Then it is enough to look at the road of the dead people in front of you. It's already a road and not just a dirt road. In the picture in front of you, you can see clearly big, large road in a good conditions. Even better than it was in the Roman period. So the conclusion that is coming out is that the animals on wheels are something disconnected from the local development, but at the same time, the animals themselves are local. Okay, moreover, animals at that time were sacred. So imagine, yes, that the head of tribe comes in and see a child playing with the man and saying God, running him on the floor. It will end in disaster, of course. Okay, but what suggestion I have? What other opinions could be, yes? For example, animals were associated with stars and space. I mean, animals could be something astronomical. But the question arises, why wheels? Why wheels? Stars rotate, or more accurate, the Earth rotates and the stars rotates relative to it. The spiral galaxies also rotates and the stars rotates with them. Therefore, wheels can characterize circular motion. Okay? This is my solution or suggestion. Now, if we move to ancient India, here you see a bronze bull and rhinoceros on wheels, Delphi National Museum. Here you can see a bull-headed bird on wheels. He has a body of a bird and the face of a bull. And also you can see a wheels and a shaft. This is from Harappa period. Now we are going to seventh parameter. I called it gemstones. Gemstones, beads on a string in the form of necklace. Using gems like nifrit 6 to 6.5 according to the Mao scale and jade 6.5 to 7 according to the Mao scale requires the use of appropriate tools. For simple beads, you need simple tools and simple work methods. However, for complex beads, you need complex tools and complex work methods. And we will see that the same technologies were used also in India as in ancient Greece. Here you can see in the picture a bit from the Maya period. This is nifrit or jade. Here you can see another example from the tomb at Palenque. Here it is a close-up. Here I wanted to add that some beads are in the shape of cylinder. All this had to be drilled. This means that the Mayans had to develop drilling technologies. Just with a stone in your hands, you cannot get such results with nifrit or jade. And here an example of drilling. On the left side, the hole is not quite symmetrical. On the other hand, on the right side, you can see that the hole is symmetrical and the surface quality is also very straight and polished. And this is Maya period, classical Maya period. Now we will move to ancient India. Here you can see carnelian and lapis lazuli beads from Dholvira, Harappa period. Here you can see carnelian beads in the form of cylinders. Here two different examples. Another example of carnelian beads in the form of cylinder. Here you can see geometric shapes in white color on the carnelian stone. You can see hyperbolas. It's the opposite of parabolas with a circle in the middle. It was an Indian invention. And here different examples of beads from different gamestones. Here you can see beads of red carnelians coming out from this pottery. And on the right side you can recognize carnelian, agate, and also lapis lazuli. But what is more interesting is that the technologies that were investigated from Egena and the conclusions from this research. The researchers found out that there were three types of technologies: stone drill, copper cylinder with abrasive, and perforation. And here, as in Mexico and as in India, as in the ancient Greece, what is important to emphasize is that in order to create these cylinders, you need to use the copper cylinder with abrasive technology. Okay, so which is already a technological invention, but it turns out both in ancient India and in Mexico and in Greece there was probably the same technology independently. Okay. Now we are going to parameter number 8, and I called it third eye, a symbol on the forehead, or in the allegorical name third eye, meaning another source for information from the environment in addition to the two eyes, like Wi-Fi. Here you can see some ellipse on the forehead and a small ellipse inside. This is a classical Maya period. This is another example of square, something square on the forehead of this pottery, of this figure. And here on this mask you can see something circular between the eyes on the forehead. And here, this is very interesting picture. You can see this rounded thing with the hole inside and all this tied around the forehead. Remember this picture because when I will get to India, we will see the same approach, the same picture, the same view. This is also interesting picture. From the left you can see a flower coming from the forehead, and in the right side a circle, a small circle inside the big circle coming from the forehead. Now we are moving to ancient India, and as I told you in previous, look at this circle with a small circle inside, and it is tied around the forehead exactly as it was in Mexico. Also you can see that the same circle tied around the hand, the right hand. And if you remember the religious people of Judaism, religious Jews, when they are praying, they tied something called tefillin, one on the forehead and one on the hand. So maybe this tradition has such an ancient roots and also a connection with Indus Valley. This is a picture from the Buddhist caves, some 6th century AD, and you see something on the forehead. Also here you can see something on the forehead that was damaged because a lot of time was passed. This is a statue of Shiva, God. And here you can see some red circles, or circles that painted with red color on the forehead between the eyes. Here you can see another circle on the forehead between the eyes, some 3rd century AD. And this is some picture from Cambodia. I decided to show you this face or this statue because you can see that they made it in form of an eye. They called it third eye and also showed it like a real eye. You can see two eyes between in the sides of the nose and the third eye on the forehead. Very interesting. Okay, now we are going to parameter number 9. I called it various designs with an equal arm cross. And here in the picture you can see something left from Mayan codex. I marked this symbol in red, something like a cross with circles or dots in the four corners. This shape is called Lamat symbol. Here you can see another part of the Mayan codex. What is depicted here was copied from an ancient source that no longer exists. So in any case you can see I marked in red something like an equal arm cross, enclosed in a circle, and 4 points in the four corners. Here you can see an equal arm cross enclosed with a circle. This is from a Mayan temple found at the Museum of Anthropology in Mexico. Here on the cheeks you can see an equal cross inside a circle and 4 dots in the four corners. I marked them in yellow. Okay, now we will move to the ancient India. And you can see here a seal that called code digiseal. You can recognize a cross or equal armed cross and 4 dots in the 4 corners. And also here you can see a cross and the 4 squares with dots in the 4 corners. It is a picture from the Penn Museum. Okay, now we are going to parameter number 10. I called it reincarnation. The Maya believed that the soul is bound to the body at the birth, and they also believed in reincarnation as it coming out from the work Popol Vuh. But if you go to India, in ancient India, or more precisely in the ancient texts, such as Rig Veda, the concept samsara appears. In a simple translation, it means a renewed flow or a changing world, and refers to the reincarnation of a soul. According to the approach developed in India, there is the internal Atman, which rolls from body to body. And the human body itself is a temporary in the world of illusion called Maya. So we can see that both in Mexico and in ancient India, they have the approach of or believed in or knowledge of reincarnation. Now we are going to the 11th parameter. It's called fluid. As in the previous time, this is the same fluid from Mesoamerica. One fluid is from Mayan stories. The gods created a flood and destroyed the wood people. Those who survived turned into monkeys. And in Aztec stories, there were 5 suns, and it lays it was 4 suns before our own, and then it came in the 4 suns some god, the goddess was told by Tezcatlipoca that she was selfish, and she started crying and causing a flood that killed everyone on earth. And you have a link below. You can read all this. But if we are going to India, we have also a story about a flood. The story in the Purana is about Manu caught a small fish in the sea. The fish asked him to save him. Manu, one of 7 sages, saved the fish. After the fish grew, he revealed himself as Vishnu and warned Manu that there would be a 7 days flood. The fish tells Manu that he should build not ship, I think ark, and put all the plants, animals, and the 7 sages into it, so that they will survive. After Manu survived the flood, he offered a sacrifice. But what I wanted to mention here, in India, the 7 stars of the Big Dipper are identified with names of Saptarishis. 7 Saptarishis, 7 sages. So you can see here a connection with astronomy. Now we are going to the 12th parameter, and I called it meditation, or sitting with crossed legs. This is a picture from a Mayan classical period. You can see this figure is sitting with crossed legs and pointing with a finger. Here is another picture of sitting with crossed legs. Also classical Maya period. This is another example. And I also wanted to add some example from Peru. Remember, this is a deer sitting in some position with crossed legs, and if you are looking on his hands, you can understand that he is praying or making meditation. And if we move to the ancient India or ancient India caves, we can find also a figure sitting with crossed legs and pointed with the fingers. Here is another picture of sitting with crossed legs. And here, this is another example of sitting with crossed legs. This is from the cave number 11. I think Ellora caves. And this is very interesting picture. This is a picture of a famous seal called Pashupati seal. It was found in the Indus Valley, and you can see here a creature sitting with crossed legs in some yogic posture, and it dates to the Harappan period, at least 3,500 years ago. Okay, now we are going to parameter number 13. Interesting and unexpected parallel between the Aztec sun disk and the god Kali in India. Both of them have a tongue coming out of the face. According to one modern interpretation, the sun disk represents the Aztec cosmology of the universe. In fact, the disk describes the destruction and the regeneration of our cosmos. Before our times, there were 4 suns or universes, and today we live in the 5th sun. And in simple words, the disk describes the change or destruction and regeneration of space in time. In the center of the disk is a head with a tongue coming outside. In India, there was also a head with a tongue coming out, and it belongs to the goddess Kali, simply translated as time. Kali is shown as the goddess of destruction and regeneration also, like Lord Shiva. In fact, Lord Shiva works in time. This is the meaning. Meaning that destruction and regeneration occurs in time, the same as it was in Mesoamerica. And another question arises, why tongue out? One explanation is that the tongue represents our life, because we eat and speak with the use of the tongue. So the tongue out is represent the life on earth. It not matter here, there, in this planet, or maybe some other planets. So you can see the circular or some other examples, and in the center the face that represents the life. And it also can help us to understand the meaning of Gorgona that was in ancient Greece, the tongue that came out, and the snakes were coming from the head. And if you remember, and I said that the snakes are actually waves. So now we can understand that the waves of life came out from the universe, and the universe is our place where life existed. Now we're going to parameter number 14. Parameter number 14 is using similar animals for the purpose of allegorical or similar ideas. Makara in India and Cipatli in Mesoamerica, and also serpent Shesha in India and serpent Quetzalcoatl in Mesoamerica. Makara is a legendary sea creature in Hindu. Makara in Sanskrit means sea animal and associated with crocodile. Cipatli was a primeval sea monster, also connected with a sea animal, and also associated with crocodile, part fish and part toad or frog. Shesha, if you look below the pictures, Shesha is a serpent with 1,000 eyes, and it symbolizes time as well as a primordial begin of creation. So creation in time. Quetzalcoatl was a feathered serpent. He was one of the 4 Tezcatlipoca who created the universe in time. So we can see here also the creation in time. Okay. It could be possibilities that the Indians from Mesoamerica sailed to India, but this possibility is weak, because no remains of such long and complex voyage or sailing ships have been found. Also, there is a possibility that somebody sailed from India to Mesoamerica, but it is also a problem. So here I made a conclusion slide. Let's read. It is possible on the one hand to see a connection between two places that are far from each other in an amount that requires attention. On the other hand, there is also a difference, that it is clearly seen that these are separate cultures which grew up without knowing each other. If the Indus were arriving in Mexico, then we would see an identity, but you can see that the gamestones were red, made of carnelian in India, and green in Mexico, made from jade or nifrit. In India, they moved to grow wheat and barley. However, in Mexico, they started to grow maize. In Mexico, it is not possible to find arcs, real arcs, circular, which were common in India. In India, there were temples with 3 parts with columns. However, in Mexico, there are no such temples at all. In Mexico, local animals were used in pottery. In the same way, local Indus animals were used in ancient Indian culture. Also, the design style of serpent and the other elements is local and different from each other. This shows that there was separate cultural development in the two places. And despite all this, there are 14 parameters of similarity at the same time. Solution. As in the previous videos, to suggest something, first of all, you have to understand the picture that is created is that on the one hand, you see a common ground or base, and on the other hand, a difference between the two cultures, ancient India and Mesoamerica, before the arrival of the Spaniards. A possible solution to the problem, what I suggest. Those who laid the foundation of those cultures had a common technological, artistic and physical source. Where can you find such a situation? In historical sources. In my opinion, Book of Genesis, in the Old Testament. In chapter 10, it is said that after the flood, each of the groups dispersed to different places, with one of the groups being called Peleg, means sailing or splitted in English. Peleg's brother name was Yucatan, just like in Mexico, the Yucatan Peninsula. Okay, similar sounds and similar names can always be, but after I had found, I remind you, yes, that after I have found about 14 parameters for comparison here in this video and some 20 parameters together, yes, between ancient Greece and Mesoamerica, Central America and Peru, I think that such idea can definitely be taken seriously. And also in chapter 11, a story is told about the Tower of Babel. It is written there that everyone dispersed to their own place with their own language. And this was during the time of Peleg. It's called sailing generation or splitted generation or dispersed generation. Hence the similarity in ideas, technological and physical similarity. But because these were not all the groups, then we also see differences. Because it is possible that some ideas could be shared by Mexico with India, for example, yes, and some ideas could be shared by ancient India with Egypt only. So I think that my solution not connected only to one comparison place. It has a solution for the India with America, Greece with America, and also the Mediterranean basin, and also ancient Canaan and Mesopotamia. And I maybe will make a video, the comparison with China and Japan. So maybe this is the right solution. And that's what happened in the past. My video came to the end. I appreciate you were with me. Next video I will make about the connection between the ruins and some physics aspects. And this will really connect to the name of my channel, Ruins Physics. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye. See you next time.